Welcome back, everybody, to Magic Stew. We are here with Core 19 Draft Hot Seat number 2. I'm Liam, and I'm here with Kyle.
Hi, I'm Kyle. Hello. I'm a person. Welcome to our new studio. If you haven't seen it before, it's kind of nice.
Yeah, this is the second or third video that you might have seen with it. Maybe fourth if I get my my sorry that we've been gone for a while video done. So, cool stuff. We built this desk. I built this desk with Mark and my friend Justin. And our Magic Stew. This is actually Magic cards.
They're not proxy, which I did not realize.
I spray painted Magic cards.
There are 14 rares on this thing.
Yeah.
And at least 2 uncommons or commons worth like close to 50 cents.
And all evening these guys have been like, why are you, oh my god, why did you use that card? I'm like, because I wanted to. Because that's how we roll.
He's bold. He's bold. So, real quick, if this is your first draft hot seat, here's a little bit about what we do. Liam has selected some uncommons from M19, which is the current draft set. I have never seen these cards. We do uncommons because there's a lot of coverage on commons and rares. I am going to give each one of these cards a rating based on how I think that card would perform in a vacuum. A 1 is the lowest score possible, utter garbage. And a 5 is really good. I want it in all my draft decks. It's hard for an uncommon to get a 5. There have been uncommons that have gotten 5s. Charging Monster Sword is the first one that comes to mind.
Dominaria had a couple, didn't it?
Yes. Tatiova. And Icy Manipulator.
Yeah.
And Eldest Reborn got a 4. The Song of Freyalise got a 4, and it was definitely pushed. In Bolus's Clutches. So in Bolus's Clutches, Tatiova and Icy Manipulator, 3 uncommons that all got 5s.
Yeah.
You'll draft every Icy Manipulator.
Yeah.
God, that card is so
and you definitely wanted to draft every In Bolus's Clutches, even if you weren't going to play it. Just get that out of there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
the
card was really good. Who knew? Control Magic still busted.
I have 5 cards that I pulled randomly from my collection of uncommon Core 19 cards. Oh.
Got to get myself psyched. We're clearly wearing the same clothing too for these recording
sessions. We're gonna extend one of our conversations from last time with this set. So
should we do a last time on Magic Stew?
Last time on Magic Stew.
We need like bad lip dubbing, like in the old Dragon Balls and animes. You have destroyed my family. Oh, his power level's over 9,000. I watched a ton of anime this weekend. I'm really sorry. All right, first card. Colossal Majesty, which is a 3 mana, so it's 2 and a green for an enchantment that says, at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. This card's great, actually. I generally dislike enchantments that don't impact the board immediately, but it's not very hard to get a card with 4 power in this set to stick on the board. There's a ton of them available at common and uncommon. Almost all of the dragons have 4 power and are uncommon, like Volcanic Dragon. There's Thornhide Wolves at common. There's a bunch of random just dorky worms and big creatures that are all at common and uncommon. And I'll be honest, if you manage to survive pretty long, Colossal Majesty is going to draw you a bunch of cards. Yeah. I've seen this routinely draw 2, 3, 4 cards, and at that point, you probably won the game.
Yeah, you got your mana's worth.
Yeah, seriously. I rate Colossal Majesty at a 3. Again, I don't know if it's necessarily as good as something like the Gargoyle Sentry that we talked about in our last draft video for it. I think it's not as good because it doesn't impact the board. But if you have, 3, 4 creatures that have over 4 power or ways to make your creatures bigger, like pump spells even. Because think about that too, like at the beginning of your upkeep, you can Titanic Growth one of your guys. I mean, yeah, you've lost the element of surprise, but you get to draw a card off Colossal Majesty, swing him with your big guy, and then potentially, you get him for 5, or force them to make bad blocks, and you're still drawing a card, so you're not actually down a card. Colossal Majesty is great. I give it a 3. I've yet to see this. Sometimes it's not going to perform well. It's bad if you're behind. I will say that much, but if you're ahead, or if you're at board parity, this is the perfect thing to break you out of it, and I think that's a good 3. The definition of a bomb is it's good at every stage in the game, whether you're ahead, at parity, which is to say you're tied with your opponent for board control, or behind. And this is good if you're ahead or at parity. So it gets a 3 for me. I don't think there's anything else I really need to say about Colossal Majesty. It's a good card. It's just solid. Make a Stand is actually our next one. It's 3 mana, so 2 colorless and a white for a 3. So it's a white instant that says creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain indestructible until end of turn. I like this card a bunch. Ben Stark's talked about it a couple times. Reed Duke has talked about it a couple times. The red-white go-wide strategy in this format is really good. This is one of the better combat tricks in the red-white go-wide strategy in the format. I was still going to rank it at a 3. I don't think it's like as big of a blowout as some of the other things that you could potentially do. Timely reinforcements. It's not timely reinforcements, but the 4-mana white-red uncommon.
Heroic reinforcements.
Heroic reinforcements. Mark's just going to look up cards or just remember them on the top of his head.
This is pretty much the strategy I play in all the drafts on
It's
Arena.
it's
red, white,
really
and
good.
white,
It's
so.
really good. Heroic reinforcements is really good. But Make a Stand is still excellent. +1/+0 is nothing to sneeze at. Indestructible is nothing to sneeze at. I've used this card a couple times. I have to say I've thoroughly enjoyed it every time I've used it. Again, not going to be great when you're behind, because when you're behind, chances are you've got a couple X1s, and then your opponent attacks in with bigger creatures that you may or not be able to block. If they've got evasion or some other relevant ability. But it's indestructible, so you keep your chump blockers alive then.
Yep.
But again, it's good when you're ahead, and it's good when you're at board parity. So it gets a 3. Make Stand it's a good card. Our next one is Novice Knight, which is 1 white mana for a human knight creature with Defender. It says 2/3, and it says as long as Novice Knight is enchanted or equipped, it can attack as though it didn't have Defender. I actually don't hate this card. Because unlike a lot of cards that are like this actually impacts the board the turn that you enter it. It's a 1-mana 2/3 blocker, which is certainly fine in some cases. Also, there's some pretty not good auras. I'm not a fan of the auras in this set. We talked about Horn Druid earlier, which I don't think is a very good card. But there is a couple different equipment cards that actually work pretty well for this. I'm thinking of the 2-mana Axe at common.
Marauder's Axe?
Yes, thank you. +2/+0. I personally think that card is more than playable in almost any deck. I'm not excited about running it all the time, but it is playable, and I think it's fine with this. I give Novice Knight a 2. It is below average, I think, but it's still certainly playable. If you want a cheap creature, it's fine. If you've got a bunch of enchantments or equipment, it's still fine. I actually think this is probably better, not better than Druid. Yeah, it's about equivalent with Druid of the Horns, to be honest with you. But I like I think this being able to function off of equipment is more useful than the Druid being able to function off auras. And my reasoning for that is your equipment most of the time is reusable. And Marauder's Axe is almost always good. Like Bone Splitter, even an expensive Bone Splitter, is still good. For those of you who don't know, Bone Splitter was an equipment from the original Mirrodin, which basically does what Marauder's Axe does at half the price. So it was 1 to play and 1 to equip. And it was routinely one of the best things to pick up because it was a cheap artifact and it was cheap to equip. But I think that's why Novice Knight does better. I don't need a lot to make Novice Knight good, because if you look at it from the vanilla test standpoint, 1 mana for a 2/3 blocker is already more than most 2-drops, and some 3-drops.
Yeah.
I mean, this is 3 less mana than Druid of the Horns and has equivalent stats.
Mm-hmm.
And all I need to make it work is an equipment that's good in my deck anyway. So it gets a 2.
So
Still
back
good.
to what we were talking about in the last episode with my my white and green.
We need like a time. Sorry, we need like a time travel motion.
Right. So we were discussing how I felt that the green and white auras deck was actually pretty fair, and you didn't like it at all.
It's fair, but that's why I don't like it.
This is one of the reasons why I love it. Because, and Mark, I could probably use your encyclopedic knowledge of the names of cards, because I'm the exact opposite when it comes to the names of cards. The +2/+2 aura. It's white.
Oh, Nightly
Valor?
Nightly Valor. No,
Nightly Oath.
Nightly Oath. Knight's Oath.
Knight's Oath, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
So I tend to try to grab a bunch of those and a bunch of that.
Sure.
And then also, of course, the 3/3.
Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell
What'd
you
you
you can't cheese your way to a victory with cheap
No,
auras
well,
and,
the reason
and cheap
being,
creatures.
if you can turn 1 this guy, and you can turn 2 that +2/+2 enchantment, you're swinging on turn 2 with a 4/5.
Great. And then you immediately get dispersed, or blocked by a Daggerback Basilisk, both of which are common, or Luminous Bonds, which is a common, or Lich's Crest, which is a common.
Sure, there are definitely ways to get rid of
Electrify,
it,
which is a common.
but that combo right there, though, is why I've had the success.
That's
that I've
4.
Okay,
had.
if I block with a 1/1, then we're on parity, except that the crux of your strategy is dead. That's what I'm saying. You can cheese out your stuff, but the decks that I have seen and the decks that have been most effective in this set are decks that are flexible and strong. White-green is strong in bursts, but it's not flexible.
That's true. It's not
And if
flexible.
you don't have the
Yeah.
right draws, it's not even strong.
Right.
Whereas blue-black control, for example, I can play a bunch of random bounce spells, counter spells, and like subpar removal, even the 4-mana choking spores, for example, and bring that stuff back or reoccur that stuff and reoccur my creatures with stuff like Grave Digger or Macabre Waltz, which is how it's pronounced, by the way, in case anyone's struggling with the pronunciation of that card. And you get there. It's flexible and it's strong.
Right.
The white-red go-wide strategy is both flexible because you can stall out because your opponent doesn't have any good attacks. Because sure, they can crack in with the 5/5 that you chump with your Goblin Instigator and then you hit them in the face for 9. It's not like you'll hold them back up until the point where they draw a pump spell for everybody, and then you Inspire Charge and hit them for 36. Or the green-red deck, the green-red ramp deck, which is excellent, which uses dragons and giant spiders and value off of stuff like Colossal Majesty, which we talked about in this video, is both flexible and strong. I have yet to see a white-green deck be flexible and strong. It's like the equivalent of the red-white aggro deck from Dominaria. Sure, sometimes you're going to enchant the Keeper of the Flame and get me for 9 3/1s with haste. But 90% of the time, I'm going to shiv and fire your guy, and then we're just going to go home.
Right.
Again, that's why it gets a 2. It's certainly a reasonable card. I'm not saying it's an
Yeah,
unreasonable
and I'm
card.
not saying it shouldn't get a 2. My experiences with it have been better than yours, I think.
Yes. But again, confirmation bias. We talk about this
Right.
sometimes. I will say, though, this does get significantly better if your opponent is playing one of the few aggro decks in the format, which I haven't really seen a lot of aggro decks in this format. Like the Go Wide deck I don't classify as an aggro deck because you usually chip in for some damage and then eventually just alpha them to death. Again, with like Inspiring Charge or Heroic Reinforcements, thanks Mark, or Make a Stand or something like along those lines. But if your opponent is trying to kill you with like random ground-based creatures, then a 1-mana 2/3 that just sits there and blocks and is only going to sit there and block anyway is great.
Yeah.
So it is certainly better on the sideboard if your opponent's playing that. But I still gets a 2. Again, it's equivalent to the Druid of the Horns. All right, our next one is Aerial Engineer, which is 4 mana, so 2 colorless, a white and a blue for a human artificer. And it's as long as you control an artifact, Aerial Engineer gets +2/+0 and has flying. So it's a 2/4 basically for 4 mana, which is like a Pillarfield Ox. It's harder to cast, which is not great. It's not where you want to be already. But it gets +2/+0 and has flying if you control any artifact. This card's actually pretty great. I'll be honest, you're not happy about ever playing a Pillarfield Ox. This is another one of those build rounds that we're talking about. Like this is, I think, a 3. And it's, again, a little better than Druid of the Horns for a couple of reasons. Like, A, I'd be much happier playing 4 mana for a 2/4 than a 2/3. And the ceiling on this is excellent. All I need is 1 artifact. So I don't have to enchant this. I don't have to get 2 for 1. My artifact's still in play. And this is a 4/4, and it's evasive, which is nuts.
And if your artifact happens to be that 3/5 creature that gets +2/+0, if you have a blue creature, you're in real good shape.
You're in really good shape. Yeah, you're in really good shape. Again, I would say this gets a lot worse. Like if you're just like a white-blue tempo deck, which is definitely an archetype that you can do. It's a deck that I've drafted with success a couple times. If you're like a white-blue Flyers deck, which is another deck that's excellent in this format, and you don't really have a ton of artifacts, I think Aerial Engineer is not worth your time. But if you've got 5 or 6 artifacts, this is a 3 easy. Maybe even a 4 if you have like 8 or 9 artifacts that are worth playing. That's really good. I'm going to put it at a 3 though. Just I think that's safely where it should be at.
This is an artifact light set, though, it seems to me.
Really?
At least in my drafting experience, I don't seem to see as many artifacts come around.
Because, okay, I'm thinking of the common ones. So the 1 mana Vial that you can tap for 3 and do 2 damage to any target at common, I think is very good. The Fountain, the 1 mana
Fountain I tend to see more than anything else.
which is actually a stellar card. I hope we
That's
get
a
it.
great card.
Yeah, I hope we get it.
Common, so it's
Right, I hope we do get it because I want to talk about it because I think it's actually like way better than people give it credit for. That's in this set. The Axe, the Marauder's Axe that we talked about, is also in this set. The 5 mana 3/5 is in this set that I actually think is worth drafting. The uncommon Gargoyle Sentinel I think is worth drafting.
right. As far
Sky
as
Scanner.
yeah,
Sky Scanner is a beating. Every time I cast Sky Scanner, I get a big smile on my face because it's so good. I feel like every time I feel like it's better than it has any business
Right.
being. So I think there's enough commons and uncommons to make me feel comfortable with this, especially because there's a lot of decks that don't necessarily want cards like Marauder's Axe or want cards like the Vial. But if I've got a couple of those trusty pack beasts to bring back my Vials after I've sacked them, it just feels like so much value. But I think Aerial Engineer sits pretty at a 3. Again, It's going to probably be a 2 if you don't have enough artifacts to make it work. Then you're just paying for a harder to cast Pillar Field Ox.
Yeah.
But if you've got 8 or 9 artifacts, this is a 4, because a 4/4 flyer for 4 in limited is that's a 5-turn clock if you haven't hit them at all, and it's very hard to deal with. I mean, the card's great. In my opinion, the card is great. But again, you're right. If you have to have that critical mass of artifacts for it to be especially good. But I don't think it's hard to get 5 or 6 artifacts, or even 4 or 5 artifacts.
When I was drafting this past weekend, my personal experience, your terms and mileage and things like that will vary.
Right.
Obviously, there were a couple of cards that relied upon artifacts that I wasn't seeing them, and I probably would have used those cards. I believe that might have been one of them.
Yeah.
Because of the Arcades deck that I was, because I went stupid, and hey, it worked this time. But but basically, the 3 colors that I was looking at, there were cards that relied on artifacts, and I was like, okay, I'm going to pull these. I ended up having to take them out because I didn't get a single artifact.
Right. And
I
that
did
means
not pull a
sometimes
single
that
artifact.
potentially someone else was in your archetype.
Maybe so.
But that's a good thing too.
But these
that's a
were
good thing to
wheeling you.
notice. But again, those are going to wheel if no one's seeing the artifacts. And there could be a player that's taking the artifacts that doesn't want these necessarily. Like, for example, I've played the red-green deck where I've wanted artifact creatures to short my curve at different points. Like, I played the Vial because I was short on removal, and played the Gargoyle because I needed a 3-drop. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you're not necessarily always going to see Aerial Engineer. But again, it's important to note, you want at least 5 or 6 artifacts for this to be a 3.
Yeah.
At 8 or 9 artifacts, it's a 4. It's important to note, because that is kind of a variable one.
Yeah.
I guess Druid of the Horns gets better too if you have 8 or 9 auras, but if you have 8 or 9 auras, that's a...
Yeah, you really don't want to play anything other than your auras, and then you have no removal. Your creatures.
No creatures. That's what I'm saying. You can play 8 or
yeah.
9 artifacts for Aerial Engineer, and you're like, oh, these are artifact creatures, or removal, or equipment to make my guys better. You have 8 or 9 auras in hand, you're like, this one's gonna be real big in like 20 minutes. I wish we still had Saproling tokens. I want to suit up a Saproling token, put the pants on the token, and just get them. I miss
Limited
slime.
baubles?
Limited boggles, man. Why not? I miss Slimefoot. I miss Slime. Oh, baby. Hello. This
go.
next one is a doozy of one to end on. Skyrider Patrol. So 2 colorless, a green and a blue for an elf scout creature with flying. So it's a 2/3. It says at the beginning of combat on your turn, you may pay a green and a blue. When you do, put a +1/+1 counter on another target creature you control. That creature gains flying until end of turn. Holy Snopes, is this card really good. This is a 4. Only because it doesn't immediately save you if you're behind, but it misses out on that coveted, like, just ungodly status by just this much. The card is really, really good. Traditionally, green does not have access to evasion in its creatures, so having access to evasion, I think, is spectacular. 4 mana for a 2/3 flyer already passes the vanilla test anyway, and the fact that this is going to make another one of your guys bigger, and then they're bigger permanently, and it grants them evasion for that turn is freaking
It would probably
absurd.
It would probably still be good if it was just getting it +1/+1 till the end of turn, but no, this is a counter.
It's a counter. It stays forever. Not only is it a counter that stays forever, attached to a relevant keyword, which is flying. That's probably the most relevant keyword in limited. Attached to a body that already flies and is reasonably costed, and it's cheap to use. It's so good.
Yeah. What's the name of the blue?
4. It's a 4.
The blue one that.
If you're in blue-green, you'll take every copy of this that you can get, and you'll never look back. You'll
Flying
take every
Giganosaur.
single copy of this. Yeah, flying. Dude, just... You know what, man? Like, at this point, if you're in Bant and you can make your Novice Knight fly, fine. Sure. I don't even care. This card is great. It's a 4. I love it. Seriously, if you're in blue-green, you'll play, like, 5 copies of this and you'll never look back.
What's the...
if you're lucky to get 5 copies of it, enjoy your 3-0. Because this card, you'll just draft a bunch of 2-drops in this guy and then literally never quit. And it's just turn them sideways. This card's great. 4. 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4.
What's the name of the blue card that becomes a copy of a creature?
It is like some illusion. It's the 3-mana
Mirror
one.
image.
Mirror image. Yes.
Mark's disembodied voice.
Mr. OCD
This-
to remember every card.
We need like a theme song.
This
for
is
you,
one of
dude.
my
You're
favorite
killing it
cards
right
to
now.
mirror image.
Yeah. This is just one of my favorite cards just to have one of. Like if I have two, if you can resolve 2 Skyrider Patrols at the same time, then just infinitely pump each other. I'm just saying, it's just really good. It's just really good. But that's it. That's it for this draft Hotseat. It was kind of a short one, but
Yeah.
hope you all enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. Give a shout out to Mark's disembodied voice. He's beautiful.
We appreciate you watching.
Peace.